I'm Jimmy Ferguson of the Lawson Road Church of Christ in Jonesboro, Arkansas. In Psalm 46 and verse 1, the psalmist penned these words, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble." What a comforting verse of Scripture. A verse of Scripture that has comforted and strengthened the hearts of countless people throughout the ages. Many Bible characters were amazed to discover just how near God was in their time of trouble. During their times of adversity and trial and difficulties, they came to realize that God was there. God was near. God was ready to help. In Genesis chapter 16, when Hagar fled from her mistress Sarai, she found herself in the wilderness. Then the Lord began to speak to her and instructed her to return to her mistress, and he went on to tell her that he was going to bless her with a child. And in Genesis chapter 16 in verse 13, we read that Hagar called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, "Thou God seest me." She learned that in her time of trouble, God was near. In Genesis chapter 28, Jacob is fleeing from Esau. He spent the night in a Canaanite city called Luz. Using a stone for a pillow, he drifted off to sleep and began to dream. He saw a ladder reaching from earth to heaven with angels ascending and descending upon it. The Lord stood at the very top and identified himself to Jacob. He then began to give him wonderful promises of protection for his journey and promised to be with him. Being in awe of God's nearness, Jacob said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know." Genesis 28 and verse 16. And though he was far from home, he named the place Bethel, meaning house of God. In the New Testament, when Paul was giving a defense of his faith, he said in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 16 and 17, that although all men forsook him, the Lord stood with him and strengthened him. And so even Paul knew that when he was on trial, in his hour of difficulty, the Lord was near. In Hebrews chapter 13, verses 5 and 6, the writer of Hebrews reminds us that the Lord said, "I will never leave thee nor forsake thee." And then adds, "The Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me." My friends, Christians are not immune to problems. We have our periods of adversity, we face our trials, and we face temptation as well. But we take great comfort in knowing that as we draw near to God, he draws near to us. James chapter 4 and verse 8. And because of that, I can say, "The Lord is my refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble."